ಸಾಧನೆ ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿ ವಿಜೇತರ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸ ಮಾಲಿಕೆಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ದಿನ ನಮ್ಮದೇ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿಯ ಜೀವಮಾನ ಸಾಧನೆ ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿ ವಿಜೇತರಾದ ಪದ್ಮಶ್ರೀ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ವಿ ಪ್ರಕಾಶ್, ನಿವೃತ್ತ ನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರು, ಕೇಂದ್ರೀಯ CFTRI ಮೈಸೂರು ಅಂತ ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತು. ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಮಾತನಾಡಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಗ್ರೀಟಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಟು everyone on this occasion of the Bharat Swatantra Amrita Mahotsava lecture series by the Karnataka Science Technology Academy Lifetime Achievement Awardees. In this series of talks, today we have the distinguished speaker, Padmashri Dr. V. Prakash, former Director of the Central Food Technology Research Institute, Mysuru. Esteemed colleagues, to all of you, a warm welcome. The outset, our distinguished speaker, Professor V. Prakash. We are also joined by a host of luminaries. We have with us member KSTA, Dr. A. Eknath, Professor H.S. Savitri, Professor Murthy, Dr. Shankar Patil. We also are joined by Dr. T.K. Srinivas Gopal, former Director of the CFT Cochin, Dr. Ravi Shankar, Present Director of CFT Cochin, Professor Kameshwar Rao, again a lifetime achievement awardee of the KSTA, Dr. Shakuntala Samuelson, Principal of the Surana College and Bangalore, and several other colleagues who are joined apart from our big group of audience. Also our YouTube speakers, because this talk is going on the YouTube. A large number of esteemed colleagues and friends who have joined this occasion. My colleagues at the Academy, Dr. A.M. Ramesh, CEO of the Academy, Mr. Umesh, and to everybody, a warm welcome and greetings. Dr. V. Prakash needs no introduction, globally known in the field of food science and technology. As I said, former Director CFTRI, Mysore, currently President of the International Union of Food Science and Technology, Vice President of the International Union of Nutraceutical Sciences, Vice President of the International Union of President of the International Society of Nutraceuticals, Nutraceuticals, and the Naturals, India, Chairman of the Indian Region of European Hygiene Engineering Design Group, Germany, Adjunct Professor of the Ramaya University of Applied Sciences, Bangalore, Adjunct Professor at the Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, and formerly distinguished scientist of the CSIR, and as I said, former director of the CFTRI. Dr. Prakash, educated at the University of Mysore, is a recipient of more than 66 national and international awards, including the, as I said, the highest civilian award of the country, Padma Shri, Karnataka Rajyotsava Award, and several lifetime achievement awards from various organizations like FICCI, IUFOST, and as I said again, from the Karnataka Science Technology Academy. He is currently serving on the editorial boards of a number of food science, technology, and nutrition journals, and globally in several fora. He is a former chair of the panel on nutraceuticals of the scientific committee of the FSSAI, Government of India, and he is fellow of the most of the academies of the country, as also the Royal Society of Chemistry, UK, IAFOST Canada, IFT USA, and several of those academies and societies in the country and overseas. Dr. Prakash has completed 50 years of untiring service and dedication to food science, food technology, and nutrition. This has resulted in more than 216 peer-reviewed research papers, 55 patents filed, more than 50 PhD students guided, 835 keynotes at different places, chief guest and convocation addresses galore. Author of 14 books, 12 books in the pipeline. He is a visiting professor to several universities in India and abroad. And also, he interfaces with several social organizations, and then basically bringing science to people. With all these accomplishments, we have such a decorated and distinguished speaker, Dr. V. Prakash, today with us speaking on role of food, nutrition, lifestyle in enhancing immunity. Such a relevant topic in the current pandemic situation. We have no words to express our thanks to Dr. V. Prakash for kindly accepting our invitation to speak in this series of Bharata Swatantra Amrita Mahotsava lecture series by the KSTA Lifetime Achievement Awardees. On behalf of the Academy and all of us, we would like to thank you, Dr. Prakash, and request you to deliver your talk before this esteemed audience. Dr. Prakash, please. Sir, mute ಆಗಿದ್ದೀರಿ. Sir, now you can speak, sir.
Yeah.
Now you can start.
Thank you, Dr. Ayappan, for your very, very kind words of introduction. And that reminds me of many of my achievements I myself had forgotten. And it has gone into the past history. But sometimes when you look at 50 years of one's life in science, you always reminds me, Dr. Ayappan, with the charisma and the activity and the inspiration that you give in terms of energy is phenomenal. So I would like to first of all put on record my grateful thanks to KSTA and the team in the KSTA for this wonderful opportunity. A very good morning to all of you and all of the audience and the entire KSTA fraternity of university, research institutions, industries, academia, and the government organizations, and also at the same time a large number of colleges and schools. ಈ ಭಾರತ ಸ್ವತಂತ್ರ ಅಮೃತ ಮಹೋತ್ಸವದ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ 12ನೇ ತಾರೀಕು ಮೇನಿಂದ 11ನೇ ತಾರೀಕು ಆಗಸ್ಟ್ ವರೆಗೂ ಪ್ರತಿ ಬುಧವಾರ ಈ ಒಂದು ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಸೀರೀಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಹಾಕಿಕೊಂಡು ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಈ ಬುಧವಾರ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಬರಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಯ್ಯಪ್ಪನವರು ಹಾಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ KSTA ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಫ್ರೆಟರ್ನಿಟಿ ಅವರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಹಾಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಮತ್ತು ತಂತ್ರಜ್ಞಾನ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿಯ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಿಬ್ಬಂದಿಗಳಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನನ್ನ ಕೃತಜ್ಞತೆಯನ್ನು ಅರ್ಪಿಸುತ್ತಾ ನನ್ನ ಈ ಮುಂಜಾನೆಯ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಆರಂಭಿಸಲು ಅನುಮತಿಯನ್ನು ಬೇಡುತ್ತಾ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಲು ನನಗೆ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಸಂತೋಷವನ್ನು ತರುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಸಂಗತಿ ಉಂಟು ಮಾಡಿದ KSTA ಹಾಗೂ ತಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನನ್ನ ನಮನಗಳು. This series of lectures delivered by KSTA Lifetime Achievement Awardees is a brainchild of KSTA on the occasion of the 12 weekly lectures that really encompasses science and technology. And this lecture series is unique in the sense that each of the lectures on different topics really makes it a very unique string of beads of diamonds. And that diamonds are strung with many unconnected personalities on a single platform to reach the public and the students and faculties and the media at large to address issues which are of large importance to the country and to Karnataka, and at the same time focus the challenges and solutions for the government to take it up, for the private to get into manufacture, and for the public-private entrepreneurship, for the new startups, and at the same time to enthuse students to get into science, to show how science can unison and benefit the society. It's a wonderful opportunity to address today for about 30 to 40 minutes, a few points that I would like to place before the audience on the topic, the role of food, nutrition, and lifestyle with a purpose of enhancing immunity. ನಮ್ಮ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋದಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ರೋಗ ನಿರೋಧಕ ಶಕ್ತಿಯನ್ನು ವರ್ಧಿಸುವ ಪಥದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಆಹಾರ, ಪೌಷ್ಟಿಕಾಂಶತೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಜೀವನ ಶೈಲಿಯ ಒಂದು ಪಾತ್ರ. Certainly, it's a very complex subject, and it will be very unfair if I say I'm going to address all the issues in the next 35-40 minutes. I would like to divide my talk for clarity purpose in putting 10 foundation stones on which you can build the building. So my 10 segments in the talk comprises of introduction, the nature we live in, the agriculture and the farmer, the food that comes out of it, the entire chain of societal interactions. And when we talk about food, it is focusing on traditional foods, nutrition, immunity, lifestyle. And of course, I will end up my talk with exercise, with a clear message for health and wellness for all. Today, we have realized in the situation of COVID-19 that 1 person or 10 persons or 1 million persons being healthy is not enough. The entire community has to be healthy. That's very, very important. Even if one is not healthy, it's going to be a different story altogether, and we know that. Therefore, when you look at the possibility of the magnitude of impact of science, especially in today's situation of the pandemic, which has shaken up the system in a very shattering way. And those who have undergone the situation would understand how close one could go to death and come back to the life, thanks to the science and thanks to the medical fraternity. But what is important is what went wrong at what stage is not the question. What is important is how much we can strengthen our own system into building a resilience into the health, how we can ourselves and with our family and friends strictly follow certain protocols which can enhance our system of addressing the behavior of the body to battle the external forces when it really encounters them with a clear, optimistic way that we can push it from our mind, from our normalcy to a clear warpath at the time when it is needed. And these are functions that immunity will bring in. And I'll touch upon this at a later point of time. But I would like to say that how dependent we are on our body, which really carries out a large number of functions without our requirement, such as breathing, digestion, immunity, and so on and so forth. So we need that extra caution to go forward. Vignana ಹಾಗೂ ತಂತ್ರಜ್ಞಾನ in the KSTA title are very synonymous, as you see. Science does invest in innovations and observations. Why, how, and what right things to do to convert science to technology through know-how, show-how, and do-how. But all this really requires a massive scale-up, and that's what the body does when it is attacked by an enemy, like a virus. It goes into scale-up of antibodies and bakes it not in hundreds, millions, billions, but trillions, into mass production like an industry, and mostly done by engineers and entrepreneurs. But the body alone does it with a fantastic precision. And therefore, it is time for us to understand how this deliverance in the body takes place with a clear mandate of food, medicine, including electronics in the medical area, biotech, of course, research like space research, defense equipment, all gathered together today to a common agenda of immunity. Thus, the importance of this fundamental science never was realized by the public till the COVID-19 hit us. The word immunity was only belonging to the scientists and probably a few doctors and medical fraternity. But today, every common man on the street does talk about immunity without any fail. When I look into the first compartment of my talk, I do want to bring in here nature. The plants, animals, the bacteria, fungi, the soil microbes, the viruses, water, air, wind, fire, climate, sunlight, the resources of the earth, the celestial bodies, and lastly, the humans. But the way we think is the other way around. We put ourselves first and then put everything else in the following system. And therefore, it is important we realize where we belong and then address the issues very clearly. Nature came first, we came later. When we talk about food in nature, such as cereals, fruits and vegetables, dairy products, and at the same time, fish, meat, and poultry, we seldom mention about spices and condiments, which in the Ayurveda, one of the real gunas of the worthwhile systems of medicine that came from almost 5,000 years back, which is very well documented in Charaka Samhita and other documents. It is important how these herbals, spices, condiments really contributes quite a bit to the life of those microbes inside the gut, as well as to boost the immunity, as well as to address many vital situations of prevention, curative, and post-COVID or post-disease management. Therefore, when we look at body into mind, health, and wellness, the entire life spectrum looks on a symbiosis with nature, with food as one of the primordial things in terms of the plurality of the organism that we are made up of, both with the known and unknown symbiosis as of today. Some reactions are known, most reactions are not known. Therefore, the interaction of different entities, preferably living, and the advantage of both becomes very vital for us to address from the basis of not only food, but also from the point of nutrition from food and the lifestyle in a larger sense, and add much more to the system of well-being. But when we come to such situation as nature, like farming, all this belongs to the society in terms of the strategy of food that we are today blessed with. We were cut off with many things, as Dr. Murthy just now mentioned, in the COVID time, with our friends, with our academia, with our research institutions, with our industries, etc. But one thing, we never got into the situation of total failure, that is the food supply. The milk came in time, the vegetables were available, the cereals, grains, everything that you need was available without much. So the system went on very nicely. But let us remember at this time, Professor M.S. Swaminathan, the green revolution that took place because of this fatherly figure. And we need to also remember the white revolution from Verghese Kurian, which is the milk revolution. And of course, there are many other revolutions like horticultural revolution and so on, but I would like to really mention the revolution of fisheries, or the blue revolution, with people like Dr. Ayyappan, Dr. Vijay Gupta, all from India, who have made a lot of difference. And these makes things in abundantly available. And globally, people are surprised how we are able to manage our food without any failure. There can be small hiccups at the last mile, but more or less, we are self-sufficient. Imagine if we had to beg food from other countries, we would have been nowhere in today's situation. And therefore, in praising our farmer as a very godly figure, the farming, the internal trade, the foreign trade, the finance and taxation, all that becomes secondary. Skilling and employment, energy and water, seed to need, and the nutritional remedies for maladies is a very important thing based on food. Biodiversity, we talk about trees, we talk about forests, we talk about plants, but nobody talks about viruses. Nobody talks about the varieties of microorganisms that are there in the universe. If they're gone, many of us are in deep trouble because they're useful organisms apart from dangerous organisms also. Therefore, when we look at the entire carbon footprint and the food waste and losses that prevails in the system, we really get into a big tussle of where to start. But focusing on today's topic, I would focus myself initially very briefly on the immune system. There are a lot of stalwarts in this audience who can talk better than me on the immune system. But for the larger audience, I would like to introduce this subject, Roga Nirodhaka Shakti. Andre, ಈ ಶಕ್ತಿ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿದೆ. In the sense, it is inside us and we need to really cannot control, but at the same time, make it function better. We can always do that. You can walk, you can also run. So it is up to your decision. So therefore, when the body's defense against disease-causing organisms or infectious agents, malfunctioning cells, and foreign cells or particles come in, the basic immunity springs itself into an autoimmunity system. And at the same time, the specific cells, the lymphatic organs, the diffuse lymphatic tissue, all put together will synergistically act with millions of reactions in the body, which even today we have not understood very well. We are only at the surface, the tip of the iceberg. All this gets into a system of operation. And finally, when we look at adaptive response of such an immunity, when we are being targeted by an external attack, the response is directed at specific targets and is not restricted to initial site of invasion or infection. This will, if one spot is infected, the whole body gets immunized. And therefore, it also during the process produces antibodies, and in turn, these antibodies get completely a Xerox copy in the memory B cells and T cells. And when after 5 years, after 1 year, after 10 years, again, if the same enemy comes in, then these memory cells get into action of multiplying the copies. And as I mentioned, an army of those cells come in and destroy them. That's one of the biggest roles of vaccine we are talking. But today, I would like to focus myself into the area of food because as the person becomes aged, his immune reactions are less responsive and thus the enemy overtakes the body. And the mechanism, the immune mechanism needs now external help and through drugs before it goes out of control. But here is the normal circumstances where hundreds of viruses and pathogens attack us every day. And when we are being completely locked in, many of these body functions becomes rather sterile. And therefore, the only thing that can boost up this is through food with nutrient, and the body would like to get enough of vitamin C, zinc, E, and good proteins and iron to help the immune reactions go on its own by assisting a little bit of these molecules to help it manage better and with more intent into the system. Therefore, let us go to the third compartment after nature and immunity into the food that we eat, ahara matu vignana. Vignana ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಹೊಸ ಶಬ್ದ. In other words, the word vignana, science is a new word. But food almost existed from the time humans came into life because these were really available even before humans came into life. And therefore, we still don't know what is the cellular understanding in terms of the food metabolism, catabolism. But one thing we know very clearly is digestion is a process that is so well made that every molecule that the body needs will take it from the food unless there is special problems with the gut. Otherwise, the normal gut should be able to absorb all these components and take whatever is needed and reject whatever is not needed. And therefore, what a great mechanism of the symbiosis between body, gut, and the food. and it's a daily affair. There are days when you might have to fast, but it is very important how this system is made so well to be sustainable, to make sure that today's challenge, not only of prevention and sustaining, but also the post-COVID interactions, where food becomes a very important system for not only institutional convergence and medical intervention, but also requires a holistic approach of excellence in cellular chemistry of food, understanding and link it to the body cellular chemistry and see how we can understand it through nutrition, cellular chemistry, biophysics of food, biomolecular pharma interface, along with food, and the food epidemiology itself, and the heritage of the food, along with neurosciences, will be definitely the tomorrow's convergence and the disappearance of departmental boundaries. National and international funding are today having 40 to 50 players in a project, and therefore the fusion of different parameters, different areas of science and different faculties are all happening to understand a very important area. And that brings me to the fourth point of probiotics and prebiotics. As you know, the probiotics are the live bacteria that are the good ones in our gut. That's why probably we always say gut feeling. My gut feeling is this, my gut feeling is that. Prebiotics basically are substrates or food to our own gut bacteria, and anywhere ranges from 5 to 9 trillion gut organisms, and there are different species. They are not one single species. And these gut microbiomes, Sukshma Jivigalu, are really ones that keep the body going. Why do we say that? There are many reasons to say that, because at one time this was not very clear, but today it is becoming very clear with science, proof and evidence. To eat a diverse range of foods to increase your microbiome, species and varieties, in particular legumes, beans, etc. And also sufficient fiber, because many of them harbor around the fiber to make sure your food that you eat really helps them grow healthily, like bifidobacteria. Eat fermented food is another role that we have been talking about, especially containing healthy bacteria. Maybe the fermented foods that one has in this country is amazingly large. And today we have anywhere between lactobacilli to bifidobacteria to many others, which protects to reduce the amount of disease-causing species in the gut. To limit sugar, salt, and oil is very important because they are not 100% natural, and therefore it also can harbor more unhealthy bacteria and may be harmful to the gut microbiome in terms of destroying them. And because once it is destroyed, you will have a difficulty in rejuvenating them again because of various regions. That we have in this country, which has multiple foods which are served. And even when you move from one region to the other, the food varies, and therefore your gut will have difficulty in readjusting to the food. And such is the sensitiveness of the gut. But it is also very, very strong to stimulate and simulate many of the healthy bacteria with whatever food you give. That's the beauty and that is the strength that it has. We also know that breastfed children for 6 months are much more really strong in immunity. And therefore, the first food that a human gets is an immune dose of the breast milk. And therefore, we learn from it, from the bifidobacteria. And then we talk about many other things to eat healthy foods, etc. But where do we get this from? It's an important area to talk about. And I strongly feel that a small word of traditional food is very important in this context. Sampradayika aharagal. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸುಮಾರು ಒಂದು 5,000 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ, more than 5,000 years old, these traditional foods have history, wisdom, practices on a region based. Whether it is distilled wisdom of these 5,000 years and the practices that we have both in agriculture, the local taste and flavor, and a variety of combination of foods with ingredients that we may never know that has gone into it in terms of combination as well as the sequence of adding them. All this brings it to a wonderful traditional food. The enhancing value of traditional food is very important in terms of immunity, in terms of nutrition, as a source of protein, as a source of carbohydrate. Unfortunately, there is a wrong feeling that if you want to reduce weight, reduce carbohydrate. You can reduce carbohydrate and reduce your weight, but you are also reducing the gut organism and creating a mess for yourself. So please remember, to deprive the body of anything that the body requires, the gut will not come and ask you for that carbohydrate. Therefore, you suffer without your knowledge by not giving those kinds of food. That is where traditional food has a fantastic balance between carb, between proteins, between pre-digested and easily digestible food because of fermentation and adjuvants and flavor and the usual process of reduction of anti-nutritional factors. Therefore, when we talk about fruits and vegetables, when we talk about spices and condiments especially, a healthy gut operates very clearly. But doing excess in anything is going to be dangerous. That just because somebody said spices are good for health, it doesn't mean I take 5 grams of spices per day. That will completely destroy my system in a very different way. So as it's said in Sanskrit, hita is mita. In other words, what is pleasant is what is in moderation. The moment you are on moderation and repeat it every day or maybe every week, it boosts your natural immunity and makes that B and T cells to memorize better. And there are signals today that we can operate and understand that better than ever before. And many papers, even in the latest paper on gut health and brain, it's very clear that a small damage to the brain can completely affect the gut health. And therefore, the connectivity between brain and gut is so important that hitherto we probably took it for granted. In Sanskrit, the role of kashaya, churna, rasayana, lehya, and what to eat and what not to eat has been very well described. But how do we transcribe that into present daily life in terms of using them? We are already using them in traditional foods, which will benefit for us into health and wellness with a clear mandate of not only food as a one single commodity that can change that whole setup, but also at the same time, make sure that the food and health has certain amount of ahara related to arogya. In other words, food is related to health holistically. Food and eating is a physical exercise, but a colorful plate with full of these personalized foods are not seen in a daily life. I am very sure if I ask this question to this very august audience, have you spent some time in personalizing your food? Oh, I know what to eat and I know what I like. It is not what you like. It is what your gut likes, what your immunity needs, and what your system needs. You have never probably had time to understand it. So when we say personalize the food, it is not what I like by the tongue, but what I need for a particular behavior of the body. Maybe you eat some food and that day you are very, very happy and jumping, and you don't know which one caused it. So we spent almost 70 years or 80 years without understanding which food is suitable for me in a way in which it can get me happiness, it can get the system boosted up into a variety of systems where we don't even really document it. So therefore, it's never too late. Even if you are 80, don't worry. It is good to personalize and take through foods that brings you much more energy, not from the point of calories, but energy in terms of vitality of thinking, brain power, gut health, easy digestion, vibration at a local level in the gut, and also at the same time nurturing the body for better immunity. In all this, food is an everyday affair, and as I mentioned already, but integrating food into cultural, emotional, ethical, and sensory understanding is partly forgotten in the society. Why do I say this? Because when you really look at the connection between body, mind, and food in terms of ahara, vihara, and nidra, it is very clear today that when we talk about arogya and kshema, in other words, health and wellness, the critical factor appears to be the varieties of food that one takes and the exercise, vihara, very important. Maybe somebody is doing yoga, somebody is walking, somebody is running, and at the same time, the controlled inhalation and exhalation through pranayama, and not to forget, at least 15 to 20 minutes of exposure to sunlight. Don't be scared of sunlight. It may alter your skin color a little, don't worry. But it gives that elixir to the body. And generally this is linked with vitamin D. I would like to say, you don't get sunlight as a medical shop and you go to sunlight, you buy my vitamin D. You can't. You get into a sequence of reactions and each molecule of those reactions are important for the body. Don't think that you consume a capsule of vitamin D and therefore you don't have to go to sunlight. You miss the remaining hundreds of molecules in that pathway from sunlight falling on the skin and generating the end product or one of the products in the system as vitamin D. So therefore, it is important that we need to understand how not only ahara, vihara, but also nidra. It is said, and it is also well proven in science, that during the sleep phase of 7 to 8 hours of sound sleep, the body uses the best of its elements of ahara and vihara that you enjoyed the whole day to channelize to 10,000 to billions of molecules to ultimately build the immune system and functions for you to be ready next day morning when you wake up. You have a bowl of immunity with you ready to attack any enemy that comes in. Therefore, nidra or sleep, a sound sleep, is very important. This must be the routine and should not be construed as a pressure to do it, especially the vihara. Many times we are very good in ahara and nidra, but vihara is the one that takes the beating because it requires discipline. It also requires a tremendous amount of solutions that we will get when we are asleep. The body will take care of itself undisturbed. When I looked at this literature of both Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita, and many other shastras, what I see is there are 16 important points for food to be beneficial to the body. Not that the immunity was unknown at that time, but it became very clear from those times that if the food is the following 16 points that I would like to mention. Swachha, I will first read it clearly so that you hear that. Then I will go into each one of them with an English translation so that it comes into as a package for you. Food has to be swachha, shamshuddha, suraksha, swadishta, sattvika, sumanaka, sanskarita, supachya, swarasya, sukarmika, supatya, swastya, Saukhya, Shrestha, Sumulya, and Sampurna. What does it mean? Is it just a few Sanskrit words that are being summed up here? No. From the scientific angle, if we really look at it, interfacing the knowledge that the Indian subcontinent as Bharatkhanda had, how do we interpret it in today's modern science? Swachha is clean food. Shamshuddha is pure food. Pure means I'm not talking about purification, but pure in the sense authentic. Suraksha, safe food. The food has to be safe. Swadishta, it has to be also tasty. Sattvika, it has to be virtuous. The word sattvika has no equivalent in English, but I tried my best to get an English word, virtuous. And that is very difficult to explain, but you know sattvika is virtuous food. Sumanaka is well balanced. In other words, the plate has to be colorful and it needs to provide everything, however small is the quantity one eats. Supacha is easy to digest. Very important. If the food is not digestible, obviously you will suffer a lot in many other metabolic and catabolic diseases. Sanskarita is well cooked and garnished. Very important. Food has to be having that whole modesty of well cooked and garnished. Swarasya, it should also be interesting. The food is not interesting, how will you eat? So therefore, unless it has swarasya in it, it is not palatable to the body. Sukarmika, in the right sequence. You can't start from somewhere and end up somewhere without any sequence of food. So food has got sequence in different regions of the world, in different parts of the world. And whatever is that, the society has been following there, it also makes a lot of sense because it depends upon the local agricultural material and their food habits and their activity, whether it's a mountain, a small tribe in a mountain, or a very, very small town in a hamlet. So therefore, it needs to be the right sequence. Supatya, individualized or personalized food is very, very important. And I would like to emphasize that. Supatya. Swasthya, food has to be healthy. Saukhya, food also has to have the amber of wellness. Wellness is kshema. Kshema, a word in Sanskrit, it means everything is all right with it. In the sense, it may have some fiber, it may be very much, you can't chew it, you have to throw it out and so on. So it really has to embody itself into wellness called Saukhya. It's a very complex word. Shrestha, it should be of highest quality, encompassing all of them along with quantity. And last but one, Sumulya, which is affordable. Food has to be affordable also. And ultimately, the food that provides us nutrition, that provides us immunity, has to be sampurna. It has to be complete and wholesome. And that's the kind of food that we are talking. And not a food that simply goes in and is thrown away by the body without being much absorbed. So therefore, in all this, the lifestyle makes a lasting difference for the food you take. I did mention about the lifestyle of Vihara in terms of exercise and whatever is needed by the body according to the age, it has to be performed. But at the same time, I would like to also look at a small amount of a passion in science that need to be invoked in each one of us, whoever it is. And that is an inquisitive question. When I eat that, what happens to me? Do I feel better? Am I better today? My mood is better. My climate of ambience is better. My body is feeling a little bit lighter. I'm happy. So therefore, investigate what you eat. And accordingly, you re-regulate what with a resilient system that the body affords you. And you can't neglect it. And use it to your maximum advantage to make sure you personalize your food and eat the right food. But maybe during lockdown, there may be problems of procurement of some of these foods. But I think within the limitations, we can do a lot of these things without much hazard. But at the same time, a holistic and integrated approach is equally vital for food, nutrition, and the lifestyle. All has to be balanced in a way in which we bring the parameters to optimization of immunity. But if the enemy overtakes us and the body cannot fight it anymore, the body will also retract itself to save that immunity fighting army to another disease. And therefore the disease overtakes us, and that's when we really need hospitalization and we require a lot of support, whether through oxygen, through drugs, and therefore it is important. The situation cannot be left to the body itself when the number of enemies increase logarithmically, and that's when there is an external support needed. But we hope by practicing proper food habits, proper systems to boost immunity, we are not at a loss. But of course, we have to respect the aging process, where the cells become very, very inactive for various reasons of aging. But at the same time, nobody can prevent you from breathing good air through pranayama, through breathing exercises and light exercises according to your age to keep your system going. So therefore, what is free to you in terms of the different spectrum of food habits, the vihara habit, and the sleep habit has to be focused in a triangle of these three, such that the dietary challenges and the role of functional foods, which are very important in terms of adding value to each of the food that you eat, and with a global view of the agenda of agri-economy, with nearly 600 million farmers in the world who belong to less than 1 acre. And they have been working without lockdown. And therefore, it is important that we don't even remember them sometimes. We just go to a supermarket and buy things. From where did it come? Because he never stopped working. If he was under lockdown, we wouldn't have had the food. So therefore, dear friends, when you eat food per day, even if you waste a little bit, you can't afford it. That's not correct. So therefore, we must not waste food and prevent losses. And at the same time, build in the food and nutrition security, and ultimately to a sustainable life that we can lead by boosting our immunity as much as we can from the food angle, because that's the only sustainable way. Any amount of drug you take, of course, in a pandemic like this, vaccination is a must. There's no doubt about it. But over and above that, you can make it better by a better combination of food that one has to eat to make the nutrients go into the system. I would like to end my talk with the clarity of purpose of what I have been speaking for the last 33 minutes, is that if boosting immunity through food-based approach with affordability factor, traditional wisdom, and ethnicity built into it, with a clear backdrop of agri practices in the region, and with the of modern science and modern technology and the evidence-based food science and technology that is available to us today, we together shall move towards that direction to make our life better. Nutrition through food and through various varieties of foods as a vehicle is not a single dose that you take like a vaccine. It is a daily dose, and you need to really manage it. Sometimes it's very difficult to manage daily dose, not through tablets, I'm talking through food. But in clinical situation, you need tablets, of course. A balanced diet that requires, sometimes per week you can organize rather than per day. Per day is very difficult in everyday life. So per week, and how do we really manage that complexity of physical exercise minimum that is needed? Therefore, the role of food in keeping us healthy is so important, but we take it granted to kindly accept that food is just food. is what the body does not tell you. Body says, evaluate, think, and eat what I need, not what you need for your mind. But of course, the mind and body are in symbiosis, and therefore we need to really look at how we look forward in the next maybe 5 to 6 years through the programs of KSTA as one biggest arm in Karnataka. ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ KSTA ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಅದರ ಆಳ ನನಗೆ ತಿಳಿತಾನೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. So much you can do with the leadership of Dr. Ayappa. I would like to wind up by telling that by 2025, we need at least 25 billion meals every day in this world to feed all. 25 billion meals per day, not per year, per day. ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ 3 ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ 25 ಬಿಲಿಯನ್ ಮೀಲ್ಸ್ ಬೇಕು ಒಂದು ದಿವಸಕ್ಕೆ. I think, will we be able to do this? Feeding the whole world without compromising on planetary health is one of the greatest challenges one faces today. A shift and a successful transformation of our global food systems will speed success across multiple sustainability goals in the world, especially in Karnataka, I would say, in the remote corners of Karnataka, especially in the farmer and his families, and we cascade that wave of technology in food, which may bring us nearer to identify and innovate solution towards a sustainable living with the maximum amount of immunity that each person can have it. And the future world with that, I hope we can live in great harmony as well as in the perfect health that to our age is affordable. I once again thank all of you and thank KSTA for the wonderful opportunity to share some of my thought in almost a one-to-one family discussion. That's why I did not want to have any slides, because this will create reading of the slides and not looking at my eyes. So once again, your patience is appreciated. And thank you very much, Dr. Ayappan. Thank you very much, KSTA, and all the audience. Thank you very much. Namaskara.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prakash, for this wholesome and scholastic presentation on food, nutrition, lifestyle, and immunity. Thank you very much. We are also happy to inform you that we have Dr. Jamuna Prakash, Mrs. Prakash in the audience. Professor Sham Sundar, he was a student, and many others in this family get together, I must say, on this occasion. So from all of us, grateful to you, such a, as I said, scholastic presentation. Thank you very much. I think we have some time for questions, comments, and opinions. And request the audience, friends, if you have some points to be made, kindly make it now.
Sir, we have Jagdish Patankar sir from Active. He would like to ask questions to Dr. V. Prakash sir. I will unmute them. He would like to ask in person. Yes, sir. Jagdish sir, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please,
Yeah,
sir.
please,
Okay.
Jagdish.
Yes, namaste, namaste. Dr. Prakash, it's such a pleasure to once again hear you. I mean, I have heard you innumerable times on multiple platforms, and every time I wonder what more I will learn from you. And again, with the same inquisitiveness, I join, and you never disappoint me. There is always something new, some new angle, very current, modern, that you always talk. So thank you very much for your talk. Also, I'm very happy to see Jamna Prakash ma'am also joining. I have not interacted with her for quite some time. Sir, I have a couple of questions. Actually, innumerable thoughts cross my mind, but one question I want to ask you. I don't know how many in the audience people know that you are president of, at present, International Union of Food Science and Technology, which is a global body, and in a way, you are and India is giving leadership to the global world. So this is a fantastic opportunity to really talk about this entire holistic practice that India has understood, nurtured, followed over thousands of years, which when we travel across the world, somehow I get this feeling that this Indian practice of food, health, wellness is not understood globally. Uh, would you like to elaborate upon whether you as a president of IUFOST taking this message across to the world, or what is it that can be done to really introduce Indian system of food and medicine to the global community?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Patankar, for that point. I will be very brief. It's a global question, but the main point here is one formula doesn't work to all. So therefore, it is very vital that the symbiosis of Ahara, Vihara, and Nidra in terms of a total holistic approach is being followed everywhere almost. But the imbalance that takes place many a times, that's what creates many problems. So how do we balance that? How do we personalize food? How do we personalize our vihara? And how do we really look at those areas to boost immunity in terms of not only diseases, but also to fight our own organs when things like cancer happens? How does our system will fight and take care of that? Sometimes we fail in that. That's because somewhere we have missed the mark. You are absolutely right. There is a huge agenda in front of me, but it's also important that we need to respect the cultures of rest of the world where similar situations are happening. And I think it may require a couple of days of seminars to discuss in a very, very long pattern. And maybe Jagdish, with your experience of organizing seminars, maybe you should organize an online symposium in terms of this food health and wellness into a complex situation. How to understand that scientifically today, and luckily science has come to our rescue. So much we know today, and therefore we will be able to address that. But still, this is very complex, I would like to say. Thank you, Mr. Patankar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jagdish sir, and thank you, Prakash. Now, I would like to unmute Shreyas KB, who has some questions, sir. Yes, Shreyas, please.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes, please introduce
I would like
yourself.
to know your name. I didn't hear your name.
My name is Shreyas KB, sir. I'm a student of food technology from Mangaluru, St. Aloysius College. It's my pleasure sir, to speak to you, and I'm very happy to hear you, because I had attended your previous seminar too on nutraceuticals, and also the talk you delivered, which was hosted by the CFTRI. And today, based on the the topics which you had explained in your previous seminars, I guess it was during the last year, nutrition month.
Shresh, let us come to the question quickly. Can you?
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask that you had mentioned about the nutraceuticals last time, that that is about the curcuminoids and gingeroids, etc. You told that there's a wide scope in this field, like extracting these from the spices. So I would like to know the current status of it. Is there any improvements which has gone in that direction?
It's a very relevant question, Shreyas. And when we talk about nutrition, it is people generally have a feeling it's proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and minerals. That's nutrition. But the body looks at nutrition in a different way. It includes nutraceuticals. It includes some of the extractives that the body can take from spices and even from millets, pulses, legumes, and so on. And whether it is a fish-based food or, for example, this year's World Food Prize went for small fish being a portion of the plate in the nutrition. So it all depends upon what you are looking at from a holistic approach. Focusing on nutraceuticals, the word nutraceuticals arises from nutrition, and therefore it's called nutraceuticals, not pharmaceuticals. But I would like to generalize this word from an Indian perspective as herbaceuticals. And herbaceuticals are those ingredients that come from various herbs. Even a small coriander leaf can be a great source of herbaceutical for you. Even a curry leaf. It could be even a mint. So it all depends upon what you are looking. Today, the mechanism is to extract the main ingredient, make a capsule and give you. But the holistic approach, of course, it is very difficult to eat 5 grams of curcumin. But if you make a capsule, you can swallow it. But that much is not needed. So therefore, we need to moderate the consumption of this through food-based approach as much as possible by a variety of nutraceuticals coming from various herbals. At the same time, whenever there is a clinical requirement, I think it is better to go through the capsule and through the tablet, through the caplet, through the syrup and many other mechanisms. And that's where many of the approaches of Ayurveda, as I mentioned, Kashaya, Lehya and all, everything comes from that angle. But how do we really modernize that to the modern world? It is not to belittle it and take only one ingredient. It requires a holistic approach. The whole turmeric is more important than just curcumin. That's how I will summarize nutraceuticals into the system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shreyas. Now I would like to unmute Dr. Vanitha from Garden City University. Please, ma'am.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, thank you so much for that wonderful talk.
I need your name. Ramesh,
Yeah,
I'm not able to hear you clearly. Yeah.
I am Dr. Vanitha from Garden City.
Okay.
Yeah, I am Dr. Vanitha from Garden City University, sir. I'm an assistant professor. And thank you so much for that very insightful talk. It was very beneficial to all the students of Garden City University. I have a small question, sir. Maybe it was partially answered also. These days, especially in this pandemic situation, everybody is coming up with these immune boosters, immunity boosters. Are we really supposed to, because, you know, we are so worried about this pandemic, we get attracted to these immunity boosters which are coming up. Do you really suggest that, sir, as supplements?
Your question is very general because it is very difficult to say which one will boost, which one will not. It all depends upon what profile you have of immunity and so on. So the question is very general, but at the same time, you did hear me that there are certain foods which are supposed to be passive. For example, rice, we consider it as just a base to mix, that's all. But rice is full of immune boosters, basically. So it all depends upon what is your food habit and what you are eating. So therefore, it is not correct always to go by one particular food. However much you can eat it by normal methods to boost your immunity. By, of course, you need an assistance of a nutritionist to help you understand which one is vital in terms of the immune reaction, which one will boost the immune system. It is not that like a vaccine second dose, you will get a boost of your immunity by eating one particular boost in terms of an ingredient in a food that is packed and sold in the market. That cannot happen. The body has millions of reactions in immune system. So things like vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and iron, and many others are well documented to boost the system. So therefore, it is important. What we know, we can really play with it, but what we don't know, we can't assume it will do. So just going by label, I would not lose my purse, try to boosting my immunity. First, I will try the food-based approach as much as possible. But whenever you are convinced by your own knowledge or by your neighbor's knowledge or your physician's knowledge or your friend's knowledge or by the internet knowledge, you try to make it, but don't become a kind of, completely wedded into that and start seeing with a microscope every food for immune boosting. That will make you a paranoid system. So I think be happy and eat whatever it is. I think if the system can make you understand, then you should really ask a question and go forward. But don't try to take too many things that are sold in the market without much introspection of deep science into it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anita. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, there is one more question from Dr. Raghavendra P. Rao, sir. Some scientists would like to suggest that such a thing as immune strengthening is not possible. What
I'm
are-
not able to hear you very well.
Yes. Can you hear me now, sir, clearly?
Yeah, can you be louder?
Yes, sir. Some scientists would like to suggest that such a thing as immune strengthening is not possible. What are your views on that, sir?
No, I didn't hear your question at all.
Some
Can you be
scientists,
slow?
yes, sir, yes. Some scientists would like to suggest that such a thing as immune strengthening is not possible. What are your views on that, sir?
I don't know which scientist has suggested. I can only answer if it is a particular question. But somebody telling like that, it cannot be, answered by me. It all depends upon who said it, under what context, and what is the reference of that statement. And because one scientist cannot simply say that whatever is done is all not correct. So therefore, it is a very complex situation. And we should understand and put things together, Raghavendra Rao, in terms of not only the food habits, not only the cultural habits, but also the scientific habit of a scientific temper going into it and looking at it. So discarding a system that allopathy is going to destroy the body and therefore I'm not going to take allo is not a correct procedure. Similarly, Ayush, which is the ministry, as you know, Ayurveda, Unani, Yoga, Siddha, and Homeo. It is very important. You can't discard any system by just like that. In some cases, there may be no science yet, but it has come from generation to generation. In some cases, the science is already ahead, and therefore, we should be very careful in not trying to say something unequivocally as a flat statement to remove a system completely. So therefore, if somebody says the scientists who are telling that immune system cannot be boosted, they're all wrong, it's not a correct statement to make. We need to go step by step. We still are groping in the dark. We have not understood even one complete reaction in the immune system. It's only a tip of the iceberg. So let us look at knowledge. People like you, Raghavendra Rao, has to work on those items and look at more in-depth work on science. And I'm not telling everything should be based on science, but science can be used to understand the benefits that one can get out of it. Especially in this talk, I would like to say food and nutrition related to immunity. It is very important that we should use science to understand. That is very important. Science is a tool, and science is not the end of everything. But it's a fantastic modern tool, and we should use it to understand. Thank you, Raghavendra Rao.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to unmute Dr. Usha Ravindra from GKVK. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Usha Ravindra from GKVK Bangalore, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Now we are reading so much about zinc supplementation, sir. So few people say that over supplementation of the zinc is resulting in death of COVID patients after hospital, recovery, discharge from the hospital. What is your view on this, sir?
I missed your name.
Usha, sir. Dr. Usha Ravindra.
Yeah. Usha, you're very close to KSTA being in GKVK. So
yes,
any time you can walk into KSTA library and refer many books. But the point is, we shouldn't isolate a single thing and say this is required. These are all to be very clearly examined. I already mentioned to you Mita, right?
Yeah.
Why a particular dose is mentioned is because in excess, it can create problems. The body has a toll to pay to throw out excess also. You may swallow, but excess, body will have to struggle to throw it out. It's a Herculean task for it. So if you keep on loading it, something else will definitely happen. But when we say recommended daily allowance of a nutrient, we always look at 1/3 and the remaining 2/3 come from other sources of lunch, dinner, breakfast, etc. for the person. But in a clinical situation, yes, it need to be given a little bit more dose because that particular element, zinc, is required for many immunoreactions, and therefore we would like to boost it up a little bit. But taking everything into a wrong situation of 1 year mega dose of zinc will definitely end up in the patient in the hospital. So you need to be moderate, mita, and look at the daily recommended doses and don't self-medicate. That's very important. Go by your doctor's advice. However healthy you are, don't go into Google, download and go to the medical shop and buy it and then blame the science for doing a poison for you. So therefore, my view is you need always assistance of experienced people in that area. Thank you, Usha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. There is one more question, sir. Is spirulina tablets in Ayurveda can be used as an immunity booster, sir?
I didn't get your question.
Spirulina tablets, which can be used in Ayurveda as immunity booster. Is it okay, sir?
You are combining two unconnected things, spirulina and Ayurveda. I want a reference where Ayurveda says you can take spirulina. Please, can you give me a reference?
Sir, in Ayurveda, that spirulina tablets can be used. That is what.
No. You can mix anything to anything. But
Yes,
what does the document say, right? So it is very important. It's all have to be supported by scientific evidence, correct? Not by somebody feels that it is the good way. If there is scientific evidence, what you say is correct. But is there a scientific evidence? And therefore, it is very important for us not to jump into today's gamut of products that can come in just because what is the dosage? And we also have spirulina, which is very rich in nucleic acids, which the body cannot digest. So it has got other repercussions. So when you are especially dealing with a patient, he is already stressed or she is already stressed, and trying to make more stress by giving certain things which are not well matured, not well proved, both by many areas of work, it will be a little bit too premature to do that. But just because somebody can make a tablet out of it, somebody can make a combination out of it, that doesn't mean that it is going to be a solution. None of them will be a solution. I want to also emphasize at this point of time, it is very important that you cannot take one part of a plane and say this is the most important part. You can't, right? You require all the parts in an aircraft to fly. Even if a nut and a bolt get loosened, the flight will come down. So please remember, these are all different facets. And we need to ask the question, the basic things are needed, that we will let us focus on. The things that are not needed and which is a luxury in many times, do we really like to have it at this point of time? So the basic needs are more important, according to me, and not something which is coming out of the way. Let it be proved, let it be going through a system. As you know, every drug goes through a DCGI approval, and every Ayurvedic system goes through the Ayush approval, and every food goes through Food Safety and Standards Authority of India regulation approval. So therefore, all this has to be looked at, because that's where science is verified. That's where the trials are done. And therefore, I would go by those regulations very much. And rather than off the shelf, somebody mixes the two, I take it, then you take the risk. So therefore, regulatory bodies have to approve. Very important, very important. And if that is missed and somebody is mixing 1 + 1 and calls it 11, I think you are in trouble. So best is to look at regulatory approvals. That's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to ask and wind up with the last one question, sir. What about
Sure.
the Indian? This seems to be general, but what about Indian traditional seasonality of food? Any particular type of food in a season can be consumed. Yes, this is the one.
It's a very complicated question because you can imagine 3,000 traditional foods in India. So which one I will recommend to which region, to which person, to which city, to which district? How do I do that? You have to help me doing it. So therefore, if one likes idli, let us say, just for example, he may like it with 20 different ingredients which are available. He may like only one. Idli with sambar, maybe idli with chutney, idli with malai pudi, idli with ghee, idli with butter, and idli with carrot in it, rava idli. There are, by the way, 40 different kinds of idlis. So which one you recommend? Complicated situation of traditional foods. And that's why CSIR, in its knowledge, created Traditional Knowledge Digital Library called TKDL. And you can always visit that under CSR website. And this was done about 20 years back when we fought vigorously for Haldi patent and Basmati patent. Dr. Ayappan would remember the Basmati patent battle, which ICAR helped so much to win. So it is important to document tradition and its wisdom and the cultural benefits as well as the health benefits. And therefore TKDL does that. So when you go through that, you will find that it is very complicated, that a particular food is good, the rest of all is not good. It depends upon the agricultural availability of the commodity, as well as what the system gets used to it. It is very important that we can't impinge a food which the culture does not accept. Please remember that. If somebody doesn't eat that particular kind of food throughout his lifetime, at the age of 60 or 70, you say, this is good for your health, you eat. It's very difficult for the person. He may eat with difficulty, but he won't enjoy it. I mentioned to you Supatya, in those 16 statements. So therefore, you are right, but at the same time, it needs to be standardized and personalized for the family, personalized for the area, personalized for the geographical ambience of the system. And that's very important to handle. But one thing is for sure, you eat anything you want, you eat amrita. But if you don't do exercise, it doesn't get digested. And most of it goes out. So therefore, you want the better of food, you need to also digest. And that digestion will come from physical activity and mental activity. And both should be all plus, 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 and not minus, minus, minus. Otherwise, just loading food that is what you see on the label is good doesn't make you healthy. So therefore, don't load the body unless you have the capacity to digest, so that the molecules from that food are available to the body. And in turn, the body uses it for a better purpose. One of the purposes in today's talk has been immunity. There can be many other tissue repair, so on and so, hundreds of others. So therefore, I would say that it is very important for you to burn the food, what you eat, to get the best out of food. Throw very little, burn all the things that you eat. So probably is a good mechanism, but depends upon the age, depends upon the sickness level, depends upon the activity level. And of course, younger people have always everything on the plus side. They have better immunity, better health, etc. But they are the ones also who are more vulnerable to bad practices because they're exposed more to society and get into a very, very difficult situation later on. So I think it is good to cultivate habits from in younger days so that you have a discipline and you have a role to play in your own life by personalizing food, and at the same time to be healthy and also wellness. Both are important. If health is up to here, wellness is up to here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you
sir.
very much, Dr. Prakash. As always, your talk was enriching all of us. In every interaction, we learn more and more from all of us. Very grateful to you for giving us your time and lifetime expertise and experience that that we have been benefited through this talk of the Bharata Swatantra Amrita Mahotsav lecture series of the KSTA. I do not have words to thank you enough. Grateful to you. And then there'll be a formal vote of thanks also from all of us. Very, very grateful to you. And I would like to inform our audience, next week, coming Wednesday at the same time, we have another talk by a distinguished speaker, Padma Shri Dr. Godbole, Professor of the Indian Institute of Science, on equity and inclusion in science. So we would request you to be with us on that occasion also. At this time, immensely thanking Dr. Prakash ji for this illustrious talk on the Academy platform. So very grateful. I would request my colleague Dr.
Thank you.
A. Ramesh, the CEO of the Academy, for his words.
Good afternoon, sir. I am immensely thankful to Padma Shri Dr. V. Prakash Sir, former director of CFTRI, former member of KSTA and Lifetime Achievement Awardee of KSTA, for a very scholarly and enlightening talk on role of food, nutrition, lifestyle in enhancing immunity. Sir, your talk covered different aspects of immunity and nutrition and how to boost our own immunity, like you gave mantra, ahara, vihara, nidra, pitta, mita. I'm sure most of us will follow that mantra. ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ತಮಗೆ ತಮ್ಮ ವಿದ್ವತ್ಪೂರ್ಣ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಹೃತ್ಪೂರ್ವಕ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಸರ್.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಜೈ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಮಾತೆ, ಜೈ ಹಿಂದ್. Very nice.
I am thankful to our Honorable Chairman, Professor S. Ayappan Sir, for initiating this Bharat Swatantra Amrit Mahotsava program and guiding us in organizing this program. We are grateful to you, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to thank our esteemed members of KSTA, Dr. A.E. Eknath Sir, Dr. Savitri Madam, and Dr. P.S. Shankar Sir, who have joined this webinar. Thank you, sir. We have galaxy of distinguished scientists and academicians. I'm thankful to Dr. M.R.N. Murthy Sir, former Dean IISc, then our Lifetime Achievement Awardee, Professor Kameshwar Rao Sir, Dr. Jamuna Prakash Madam, my Guru, Dr. B.A. Shamsundar Sir, and my senior, Dr. Ramaya Sir, Dr. Srinivas Gopal, Dr. Ravi Shankar, Dr. Shakuntala Samuelson, Dr. P.G. Rao, Dr. Usha Ravindranath, Dr. Wallish, Dr. P.M. Patil, Dr. Gayatri, Dr. Jagdish, Dr. Priya, Dr. Usha, Dr. Prashant, and many other seniors have joined, and Dr. Tabassum from Surana College all have joined. In fact, there was a record number of participants for this webinar, sir. More than 200 participants were there, and we are very grateful to you, sir, for your wonderful talk. As our Honorable Chairman told, next week on Wednesday, we have a distinguished talk by Professor Godbole Rohini Madhusudan Madam, who is a professor of Center for High Energy Physics Department, IISc. I request all of you to kindly join. I am also thankful to our honorable member, Professor Savitri Madam, if I have not mentioned earlier. Thank you very much, everyone. Good day.
Thank you. Namaskara. Namaskara.
Thank you, sir.